Commander Jake Rivers stood at the viewport of the UES Nemesis, watching the Zephyrian fleet burn in the cold vacuum of space. 27 dreadnoughts, reduced to twisted metal and regret. The coffee in his mug had gone cold an hour ago, but he kept sipping it anyway. Old habits die hard, unlike the 3,000 Zephyrian soldiers who just learned that lesson the permanent way. "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Chen." Lieutenant Sarah Martinez called from the communication station. Her voice carried a particular mix of awe and terror that came from witnessing humanity unleash its full potential on an unsuspecting galaxy. Jake turned slowly, his weathered face showing a kind of smile that made seasoned warriors check their life insurance policies. Put her through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Admiral Chen's stern features. Even through the blue-tinted projection, her satisfaction was unmistakable. "Rivers, I trust the Zephyrians received our message loud and clear?" "Oh, they got it all right," Jake replied, gesturing toward the burning wreckage outside, "though I suspect their comprehension skills need some work. Funny how quickly their invincible armada became a debris field when they met some good old-fashioned human hospitality." Admiral Chen's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "The Galactic Council is having what I believe they call a collective existential crisis right about now. Apparently, they thought our regular military was scary. Wait until they find out what we do when we're actually trying." Lieutenant Martinez cleared her throat nervously. "Sir, the Zephyrian survivors are requesting permission to surrender." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Survivors? How many?" 17 escape pods, sir. Roughly 85 personnel. 85 out of 3,000. Jake shook his head, his expression shifting from amusement to something far more dangerous. "Tell them we'll consider their surrender after they explain why they thought glassing New Brisbane was a good idea." 6 months earlier, the galaxy had learned to fear humanity when we joined the Galactic Federation. Our conventional forces had steamrolled 3 separate conflicts, earning us a reputation as the newcomers you absolutely did not want to mess with. Species that had been waging war for millennia suddenly found themselves on the wrong end of human ingenuity, determination, and sheer bloody-minded stubbornness. But the Zephyrians? They thought they were different. They thought their crystalline technology and collective consciousness made them superior. They thought wrong. The attack on New Brisbane had been their masterstroke, a demonstration of power meant to put humanity in its place. 4 million colonists vaporized in an instant. Men, women, children, entire families erased because the Zephyrians wanted to send a message. Well, humanity was about to send one right back. "Admiral," Jake continued, his voice dropping to a conversational tone that somehow managed to sound more threatening than any shout, "I think it's time the galaxy met some people they haven't been introduced to yet." On the holographic display, Admiral Chen's smile widened. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting, Rivers? I'm suggesting that the Zephyrians want to see what humanity looks like when we're angry, but what they actually saw was us being polite." Jake set down his coffee mug with deliberate precision. Perhaps it's time for a more specialized response. The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. Every officer present knew exactly what Commander Rivers meant. The galaxy had seen the human defense force in action. They had witnessed our Marines, our Navy, our standard military doctrine that had already rewritten the rules of interstellar warfare. But they had never met the ghosts. Lieutenant Martinez's console chimed with an incoming priority message. Her face went pale as she read it. "Sir, we're receiving new orders directly from Earth Command. Operation Reaper has been authorized." Jake's grin could have powered a small star. Well, looks like someone upstairs agrees with my assessment." He turned to face his bridge crew, noting how they all unconsciously straightened when his attention focused on them. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received a mission to introduce the galaxy to some very special friends of ours." "Sir," ventured Ensign Tommy Park on the navigation station, "what exactly is Operation Reaper?" Before Jake could answer, the ship's AI chimed in with its maddeningly cheerful synthetic voice. "Operation Reaper is a classified military protocol involving the deployment of Earth's most elite special operations units in response to acts of genocide against human colonies. Mortality rates for target species typically exceed 97%. Have a nice day. The bridge crew exchanged glances that ranged from excited to horrified. Jake just laughed. Thank you, Arya. Always the optimist. He activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the commander. As of this moment, the UES Nemesis is departing for Earth to collect some passengers. I want everyone to understand something very clearly. What happened here today was not warfare. What happened here was a strongly worded diplomatic note. He paused, letting that sink in. The real war starts when we get back. The jump to Earth took 18 hours, during which Jake found himself fielding calls from half the governments in human space. Everyone wanted to know if the rumors were true. Everyone wanted to confirm whether Earth Command had actually authorized the deployment of units that officially did not exist. Jake's answers were uniformly unhelpful and thoroughly entertaining. Senator Williams, I'm afraid I have no idea what you're talking about. The ghosts? Never heard of them. What's that? Special forces units that make our regular military look like a church choir? Sound like science fiction to me. By the time they reached Earth orbit, Jake's mood had improved considerably, partly because of the entertainment value of watching politicians panic, but mostly because of what he could see waiting for them at Luna Station. 6 unmarked transport ships hung in the shadow of the moon, their hulls bearing no identification beyond small numerical designations. They looked unremarkable, the kind of vessels that cargo haulers would ignore and customs officials would wave through without a second thought, which was, of course, entirely the point. Sir, we're being hailed by Transport 7, Lieutenant Martinez reported. On screen, the face that appeared was unremarkable in every possible way. Average height, average build, brown hair, brown eyes, the kind of features you forget 5 minutes after meeting the person. The only thing unusual about him was his voice, which carried the kind of calm confidence typically associated with people who had seen the worst the universe had to offer and decided it needed improvement. Commander Rivers, this is Colonel Marcus Stone. We're ready for pickup. Jake nodded. How many are we talking, Colonel? 48 operators across 12 teams. We'll be conducting a comprehensive educational program for the Zephyrian species. Estimated duration, 6 weeks. Estimated survival rate for the target population. Stone's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Well, let's just say they should have thought about that before they murder for million civilians. Any special requirements for transport? Just one, Stone replied. We prefer if the galaxy doesn't know we're coming until after we've arrived. Surprise parties are so much more fun that way. Jake's laugh echoed across the bridge. Colonel, I think this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. As the unmarked transports docked with the Nemesis, Jake found himself wondering what the Zephyrians were doing right now. Probably celebrating their victory over New Brisbane. Probably planning their next target. Probably congratulating themselves on showing humanity its place in a galactic hierarchy. They had no idea that their species had approximately 42 days left to live. The galaxy already feared humans after witnessing our conventional forces in action. Our Marines could hold positions that should have been impossible to defend. Our pilots could outfly anything with wings, engines, or gravitational manipulation systems. Our tacticians had turned warfare from an art form into a precise science. But the ghosts? The ghosts were what happened when humanity stopped playing by the rules entirely. As the last transport locked into position, Jake received a message from Earth Command. The orders were simple, direct, and absolutely terrifying in their implications. Eliminate the Zephyrian species. Leave no survivors. Make sure every other hostile civilization in the galaxy understands exactly what happens when you genocide human colonies. Jake deleted the message and poured himself a fresh cup of coffee. Outside his viewport, the stars looked different now. They looked like targets. The galaxy thought it knew what human warfare looked like. They thought they understood what humanity was capable of when pushed to violence. They thought they had seen our worst. Poor, naive, soon-to-be-extinct fools. They were about to discover the difference between humanity at war and humanity seeking revenge. They were about to learn why. In the deepest, most classified files of Earth's military, there existed units that made regular special forces look like kindergarten teachers. Units like Ghost Team Alpha, led by Captain Elena Voss, whose idea of psychological warfare involved leaving her calling card carved into the foreheads of enemy commanders. Units like Reaper Squad, specialists in making entire enemy populations simply vanish overnight. Units like the Phantom Battalion, who had perfected the art of making genocide look like a series of tragic accidents. The galaxy already feared humans, but fear was just the opening act. Terror was about to take the stage. 3 weeks after the Nemesis departed Earth, the first Zephyrian colony went dark. Not destroyed, not conquered, dark, as in every single form of communication simply stopped. No distress calls, no status updates, no routine traffic control chatter. 5 billion Zephyrians on Kepler Prime just vanished from the Galactic communication network. Supreme Crystalline Overmind Zyx'thara felt something unprecedented ripple to a collective consciousness of her species. Fear, individual, personal, unshared fear that broke the harmony of their mental link like a discordant note in a perfect symphony. "What is the status of Kepler Prime?" she demanded, her crystalline form pulsing with agitated purple light. War Commander Veldar's response came through their mental network, carrying undertones of confusion and growing dread. "Unknown, Supreme One. All automated systems show normal operation. Life support is functioning. Power generation is optimal. The population simply isn't responding. Send a scout fleet, 10 dreadnoughts. Find out what happened." The scout fleet arrived at Kepler Prime to find a world that looked perfectly normal from orbit. Cities functioned. Transportation networks operated. Even the weather control systems maintained their usual patterns. But every single Zephyrian on the planet was dead, not killed in battle, not vaporized by orbital bombardment. Dead, in their homes, at their workstations, in the middle of conversations, with expressions of absolute terror frozen on their faces. The only evidence that anyone had visited was a message burned into the crystalline surface of the capital city's central plaza. 3 simple words in perfect Zephyrian script. Lesson 1, Fear. Scout Commander Nixal transmitted his findings back to the homeworld, along with detailed sensor readings that made no sense whatsoever. No weapon signatures. No traces of poison or biological agents. No signs of struggle. 5 billion Zephyrians had simply died of fright. Supreme Overmind Zyx'thara felt her crystalline form crack slightly as the implication set in. How is this possible? The answer came 18 hours later, when Zephyrian Colony 7 experienced the same fate, and then Colony 12, and then the mining outpost in the Arcturus system. Each site told the same impossible story. Perfectly preserved infrastructure, 0 survivors, and a new lesson burned into prominent public spaces. Lesson 2, Despair. Lesson 3, Hopelessness. Lesson 4, Regret. By the time the 6th colony went dark, the Zephyrian collective was in full panic. Emergency sessions of the War Council devolved into psychic screaming matches as fear spread through their mental network like a virus. "We must contact the Galactic Council," War Commander Veldar insisted, his mental voice cracking with desperation. "Demand they intervene." "And tell them what?" Supreme Overmind Zyx'thara's response carried enough fury to shatter crystal, that we committed genocide against a human colony, and now something is systematically exterminating our species? They will laugh at us. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Nemesis, Commander Jake Rivers was having the time of his life. "Colonel Stone, I have to ask," he said, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. "How exactly are your people doing this? Our sensors show no evidence of any kind of attack." Colonel Marcus Stone's unremarkable face remained perfectly neutral. "Trade secrets, Commander. Let's just say that when you spent your entire career learning how to kill people quietly and efficiently, you developed some interesting techniques." Interesting is one word for it. Jake gestured at the holographic display, showing the most recent Zephyrian colony. 30 million dead, without a single shot fired. That's not warfare, Colonel. That's art. Art with a purpose, Stone corrected. Every species in this galaxy needs to understand that attacking human civilians carries a very specific price. We're not just eliminating the Zephyrians. We're sending a message to every other species that might be considering similar actions. Lieutenant Martinez looked up from her console, her face pale. Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate diplomatic contact. Jake's grin could have lit up a small star. Oh, now they want to talk. How delightfully predictable. Put them through. The holographic display activated, showing the familiar blue-green form of Council Speaker Morpheus, a cetacean whose species had been mediating galactic disputes for over 4 centuries. Today, however, the usually calm diplomat looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Commander Rivers, the Council demands an immediate explanation for these attacks on Zephyrian colonies. Attacks? Jake's tone was all innocence and confusion. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about, Speaker Morpheus. The Human Defense Force has been conducting routine training exercises in our territory. Perhaps the Zephyrians are experiencing some kind of internal crisis. Commander, 37 billion Zephyrians are dead. 37 billion? My goodness, that does sound like a lot. Have they considered seeking medical attention? Maybe it's some kind of epidemic. Speaker Morpheus's whale-like form turned several darker shades of blue-green. These deaths are clearly the result of human military action. Are they? Jake tilted his head thoughtfully. That's a serious accusation, Speaker. Do you have any evidence of human involvement? Weapon signatures? Ship identifications? Anything that would indicate an attack? The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds before Speaker Morpheus admitted, No, we have no direct evidence. Well then, I suppose we have a mystery on our hands. Jake's smile never wavered. Perhaps the Council should focus on providing humanitarian aid to the surviving Zephyrian colonies, instead of making unfounded accusations against human forces. Commander Rivers, please. We know what you're doing. The entire galaxy knows what you're doing. This is to stop. Jake's expression shifted so quickly that several bridge officers instinctively stepped back. The friendly mask vanished, replaced by something that made Arctic winters look warm and inviting. Has to stop. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Speaker Morpheus, let me share something with you. The Zephyrians vaporized 4 million human civilians, 4 million innocent people, including children, who never hurt anyone and never pose a threat to anyone. They did this to send us a message. The hologram flickered as Jake leaned forward. Now we're sending one back. The only question is whether the rest of the galaxy is smart enough to read it correctly. Speaker Morpheus's form rippled with distress. Surely there must be some way to resolve this diplomatically. Oh, there is, Jake replied cheerfully. The Zephyrians can surrender unconditionally and submit to human justice. All surviving members of their species will be given fair trials before being executed for genocide. Very diplomatic. Very civilized. That's not a diplomatic solution. That's extinction. Funny thing about that, Jake mused. 4 million humans thought they were safe on New Brisbane. They thought civilization meant something. They thought there were lines that even hostile species wouldn't cross. His smile returned, sharp as a blade. They were wrong. The transmission ended abruptly as Speaker Morpheus cut the connection. Jake turned to Colonel Stone, who had been listening to the conversation with obvious amusement. Think they'll get the message, Colonel? Oh, they'll get it, Stone replied. The question is whether they'll act on it. Intelligence suggests several species are already reconsidering their expansion plans into human space. Good. And the Zephyrians? Down to about 12 billion across their remaining colonies. We should have them completely eliminated within 2 weeks. Any change in methodology? Colonel Stone's unremarkable face showed just a hint of anticipation. Actually, yes. My teams have been developing some new techniques. Ghost Team Alpha found a way to turn their collective consciousness against them. Instead of dying of fear, the next batch will die of each other. Jake raised an eyebrow. Come again? The Zephyrians share a mental link across their entire species. Captain Voss figured out how to hack into that network and introduce, let's call them disruptive thoughts, paranoia, suspicion, Rage. Within hours, they start turning on each other. Civil war breaks out, and by the time the shooting stops, there's nobody left to shoot. That's... Jake searched for the right word. That's absolutely diabolical. Thank you, sir. We try. The conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Martinez, who looked like she was about to be sick. Sir, we're receiving reports from the Zephyrian homeworld. They're offering complete surrender. Jake and Colonel Stone exchanged glances. Stone shrugged. A bit late for that, don't you think? Put them through, Jake ordered. Supreme Overmind Zyx'thara's crystalline form appeared on a holographic display, but the proud, arrogant creature from before was gone. In her place was something broken, desperate, and absolutely terrified. Human Commander, we surrender completely and unconditionally. We will submit to any terms you impose. We will pay any reparations you demand. Please, just stop killing us. Jake studied the alien leader for a long moment. Supreme Overmind Zyx'thara, isn't it? I believe we met briefly after New Brisbane. You said something about showing humanity its place in the Galactic order. We were wrong. The psychic scream carried enough desperation to make several bridge officers wince. We were arrogant and foolish. We offer our complete submission. Your submission. Jake nodded thoughtfully. That's very generous. Unfortunately, there's a small problem with your offer. Name it. Anything. The problem is that you waited until after we started killing you to offer surrender. If you had surrendered immediately after New Brisbane, we might have been able to work something out. Life imprisonment for your leadership. Reparations. Supervised probation for your species. Zyx'thara's form pulsed with desperate hope. Yes, those terms are acceptable. Jake's smile was colder than the vacuum of space. But you didn't surrender then. You waited until we demonstrated what human justice actually looks like. So now the terms have changed. Changed how? There are no terms. Your species attacked human civilians. Your species committed genocide. Your species decided that the only language we understood was violence. Jake leaned back in his command chair. So we're responding in the only language you apparently understand. But we surrender. Supreme Overmind, let me explain something to you. When you glassed New Brisbane, you weren't just killing 4 million humans. You were teaching every species in this galaxy that attacking human civilians is acceptable. That genocide is a valid military tactic. That there are no consequences for mass murder. Jake's voice grew quieter, more conversational, infinitely more terrifying. We can't allow that lesson to stand. So we're teaching a different one. We're showing the galaxy what happens when you cross lines that shouldn't be crossed. Every species out there is watching what happens to you. Every government is taking notes. Every military is reevaluating their strategic positions. You're using us as an example. Now you're getting it. Jake nodded approvingly. In 6 days, when the last Zephyrian draws their final breath, every species in this galaxy will understand that attacking human civilians means extinction. Not defeat. Not conquest. Extinction. The hologram flickered as Zyx'thara's form began to crack and fragment. Please, there are children among us. Innocents who had nothing to do with the attack. There were children on New Brisbane, too. The transmission ended. Colonel Stone broke the silence that followed. 6 days seems optimistic, Commander. My teams are ahead of schedule. I'd say 4 days, maybe 5. Jake nodded. Make it 4. The sooner this lesson ends, the sooner the galaxy can move on to more productive activities. As the Nemesis prepared to jump to the next target system, Jake found himself thinking about the conversations he'd had with various alien diplomats over the past few weeks. Fear, panic, desperate attempts at negotiation. They still didn't understand. This wasn't warfare. This wasn't conquest. This wasn't even revenge. Not really. This was education. The galaxy had spent millennia operating under certain assumptions about acceptable behavior in warfare. Those assumptions had just been permanently revised. In 4 days, when the last Zephyrian died, every species in known space would understand the new rules. Human civilians were off-limits. Human colonies were off-limits. Human space was off-limits unless you were specifically invited. The price for forgetting those rules was extinction. Simple, direct, educational. The galaxy already feared humans before they met the Defense Force. Now they were about to learn the difference between fear and absolute terror. Class was almost over, but the lessons would last forever.